Welcome to the Baffled Brain, Demystifying Dementia, your daily podcast that will teach you everything you need to know about dementia. At Think Different Dementia, we know that dementia seems complex and challenging to manage, but we also know with the right tools at the right time, dementia is made simple. I am your host, Lizette Klute from Think Different Dementia, where we believe you're only one technique, the right technique, away from thriving and not just surviving your dementia journey. So please like this video, please subscribe to the podcast, and please share these videos with your friends and families so that we together can thrive and not just survive your dementia journey. So welcome to today's program. Well, welcome back to today's broadcast. Today's program is about the cockpit. Today is October the 19th. It is Tuesday, October the 19th, 2021, and this is episode 44. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. Thank you for joining the broadcast. Remember, if you like this program, please subscribe to my YouTube channel called Think Different Dementia, or join my Facebook group called Think Different Dementia Education Group, where I'm there to answer your questions at any time. I do message people, so please, I'm here to answer questions to help you and support you. So let's dive right into today's episode. So today we're going to discuss how does we're further going to build out the analogy of using an airplane to describe and make dementia simple. So we're going to start with the cockpit. Who's in the cockpit? Well, typically in the cockpit of a airplane, especially the bigger ones, most of us have flown, but in a larger Boeing or a larger airplane, right, we have in the cockpit, we have a pilot, a co-pilot, and in the old times used to have a navigator or a guide, right? Somebody, or you can use the analogy of instrumentation instead of a person. But for purposes of dementia, we are going to use the in the cockpit as a pilot and a co-pilot. Now, I want you to remember that a pilot and a co-pilot are both pilots. They just have different roles in the flight. And sometimes during a flight, the pilot actually is sleeping on a long journey, right? And then the co-pilot is in charge. But they're both pilots. They both have the same skills to be able to fly an airplane. They're not just there for decoration. There's a pilot and a co-pilot in every single flight, in especially larger flights, right? So how do we, using the analogy of our life as being a flight or a journey with a takeoff, a flight, and then a landing, how does a pilot and a co-pilot, how do they work together in the analogy of dementia? Well, I submit to you that when we are babies, when we're little children, as we're going through our life flight, right, as we take off and we are developing, our parents typically are our pilots, and we are in the co-pilot seat. We are not actually at that point in our life flying our own plane. We're babies, we're toddlers, we're young adults, we're teenagers, and even through those developmental years, we are not at that point in the pilot seat. Our parents are our pilots, and we are actually in that process of our life. We are in the co-pilot seat. We're not flying our own plane. Now, at some point or another during our life, we do take over, right? We become adults. Somewhere here in our late teens, early 20s, even though I always joke with people, our cognition continues to improve or develop up until 25. So if you're younger than 25 and you're listening to this, I'm sorry to tell you that you're not done developing yet. But for purposes of a life flight, by the time we get to our high school, end of high school, and beginning of college years, we're mostly piloting our own plane. we have a little bit of support from our parents, perhaps, but we're in charge of our own flight, and we remain in charge of our own flight as the pilot of an airplane, of the flight of our life. We remain in control of our own flight for most of our adulthood. There are periods of time in our life when all of us are on a journey through our life with other people. We're not in a silo. None of us live unless you're living in the middle of nowhere and there are no other people around you. You have people who are around you. For the most part, people are married, or they have significant others, or they have spouses, or if they're not married because their spouses died, they have children that are in their lives. We're not a silo. We live our lives together with other people. So as we're in our flight, as we're journeying through this life together, let's use me as an example, right? I have a husband. We've been married for 28 years. We have a great marriage. Didn't start out that way, but we have a great marriage now. And my husband and I co-pilot. We pilot and co-pilot our lives together. So right now I'm the pilot of my flight and my husband's my co-pilot. But say I were to be ill, right? Something happened. I get COVID. I'm significantly ill. I've seen patients. I work as an occupational therapist still, and say I am on a vent because I got COVID, right? At that moment in time in my life's journey, I'm not piloting my plane. My husband is piloting my plane. I have a healthcare power of attorney, so he would take over and pilot my airplane at that my life flight, right? He would be the one making the decisions. But for the most part, as we're flying and as we're on a life's journey, we are piloting our own airplane. Who else is, the co-pilot is there. So as related to dementia, though, a pilot and a co-pilot will eventually start to, they have an inverse relationship with one another. So we'll use the analogy of a parent who has dementia and a child, right? The parent is going to be, as they're progressing through their dementia journey, they are going to go from being the pilot as they're gradually losing their abilities. They're gonna start to have difficulty, right? And say the spouse, who is at the beginning the co-pilot, at some point or another, they're going to intersect. And at that intersection point is where the co-pilot then takes over and actually starts to pilot the plane for the person with dementia. They will become the person making the decisions. They will be the person who helps to keep the person with dementia safe. And by safe, I mean safe in all spheres and realms, right? So the person with dementia will, over time, as they progress through their dementia journey, they are going to be losing some of their independence and some of their abilities. And though we want them to be as active as possible, at a point, unfortunately, we know that another person is going to have to help make these decisions and help keep somebody with dementia safe. So as a person progresses through their life in the cockpit of the journey of dementia, we have a pilot and a co-pilot. And as a person with dementia starts to lose their ability to do all of the decision making, they will go from being the pilot of their own journey to being the co-pilot. And their co-pilot, which is typically a child or a spouse, will start to take over and become the pilot of their journey. Still also in the cockpit, we have instrumentation. I want you to think about the instrumentation as a guide to being on this journey. It helps keep us going in the right direction. And I invite you to think about me as your guide in this journey, using the instrumentation so that we have a smooth flight and a smooth journey through the journey of dementia. And so if you like these videos, I invite you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel called Think Different Dementia. If you like these videos, you're also welcome to join Think Different Dementia Education Group, or you can just listen to this podcast on as many of the podcast platforms that I'm getting on. So bear with me. This is still a very new process. I've been doing these videos for a while, but it's definitely a new format, and I thank you for being here today. Today is October the 19th. This was episode 44, and as I end all of my broadcasts, the Lord bless you and keep you, and thank you for joining me. And like and subscribe. You guys know the drill. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.